Her smile is deliberate. Her silence is calibrated. The moment you think she is unsure, she is not. She is measuring you with the precision of a jeweler inspecting a diamond, except she is not looking for beauty. She is looking for fracture points. Every woman, whether she can articulate it or not, has a private metric for power, and she applies it in real time with a speed that leaves men dazed. You think the conversation is casual, that her glance away is incidental, that her teasing remark is just playfulness. It is not. It is a diagnostic test of your frame, and in that moment, the only question she is answering in her own mind is, can this man command me without demanding me? When you understand this, you stop interpreting her behavior as mood swings or confusion, and you start seeing the cold, evolutionary mathematics in play. She is wired to detect instability in a man the way prey animals detect the scent of predators, because for her, instability in a mate means risk, uncertainty, and lowered survival odds. But if she senses unshakable command, that primal sensor flips from caution to fascination. And fascination is the gateway to obsession. This is the threshold you must cross. Scenario 1 begins in the subtle space, where most men never notice they are already being evaluated. You are sitting across from her at a cafe. Her eyes flicker toward the waiter as he passes, and then back to you with the faintest trace of a smirk. She leans in slightly and asks, almost idly, "So, what exactly do you do?" The casual man hears curiosity. The aware man hears the opening volley of a power audit. This is not about your job. It is about your self-concept. Evolutionary psychology explains this as a mate value probe. She is trying to place you in a hierarchy without revealing that she is doing it. The smirk is important. It is a microsignal that she is not entirely serious about the words she is speaking, but deadly serious about the meaning behind them. She wants to see how you react when you suspect you're being evaluated, and whether you need her validation to stand upright in your own identity. If you flinch, if you scramble for credentials, if you try to impress, you fail the hidden test. She is not asking for data. She is asking for proof of unshaken internal authority. The weak response here is almost universal. Most men answer the question as if it were an HR interview, their posture changing, their tone shifting to an upbeat, almost defensive enthusiasm. "Oh, I work in tech. I just got promoted. I manage a team of 6, and I'm actually working on this exciting project that..." The problem is not the content. It could be the most impressive resume in the room. The problem is the subtext. He has taken the bait and is now performing for her. This flips the polarity instantly. She is the examiner. He is the candidate. From a psychological standpoint, the collapse is inevitable. He has unconsciously ceded frame control, which signals that his identity is negotiable based on the approval of others. The moment she senses this, attraction starts to drain because her deeper instinct tells her that a man who performs under mild social pressure will fold under real-world stress. And the irony is brutal. The more impressive his words, the weaker the frame they emerge from, and the less power she attributes to him. The power response rewrites the frame entirely. When she asks, "So, what exactly do you do?" the man with unshakable presence treats the question as if it is casual banter, not an interrogation. He might glance at her with the faintest amused smile and say, "I do what I want." Then he pauses, lets the air breathe. If she presses, he adds with an easy tone, "Right now that happens to be. Building things I actually care about." No rush to explain, no resume, no nervous filler. The genius of this response lies in its subcommunication. He is signaling that his value is self-evident to him, not subject to her evaluation. Machiavelli would call this the performance of effortless authority, where the act of not justifying yourself becomes the proof of your status. It triggers the pre-selection effect, because only a man accustomed to high regard can afford such brevity in self-definition. This shifts the dynamic without any visible aggression. Her perception shifts instantly. The smirk she wore as a shield against your performance now wavers into something more primal, curiosity. In her mind, she is forced to recalibrate. This is not the candidate in an interview. This is the sovereign on his throne, and she is the one invited into the audience chamber. She may playfully press again, but the energy has changed. What began as a hierarchy probe has been inverted into a mystery frame where she is the one seeking access. Over time, this singular moment embeds itself as a reference point. She cannot recall you ever chasing her approval. This seeds a fascination loop that makes her interactions with other men feel comparatively flat. Without consciously realizing it, she begins to seek the micro-expressions, the unhurried tone, the refusal to scramble for validation, because in her mind, that is what real masculine power feels like. Scenario 2 unfolds in a setting where the test is not verbal but behavioral. You are walking together through a crowded social event, maybe a rooftop gathering in the early evening. Music low enough for conversation, the air charged with the subtle electricity of people scanning for faces and status cues. She is at your side, but then she spots someone across the space, a man she clearly knows. She excuses herself with a light touch on your arm and steps away to greet him. From a distance, you see her lean in, smile, her hand brushing his arm as she laughs. She glances back at you briefly, not to check on you, but to measure your reaction. This is not carelessness. It is a deliberate behavioral probe, rooted in the evolutionary strategy of gauging mate security. She wants to see if your position in her world collapses when she momentarily shifts her attention elsewhere. At a primal level, this is a test for possessive fragility. If you crack here, she knows that your authority rests on her constant focus, which means it can be dismantled by diversion. The weak response almost writes itself. Many men, even those who think of themselves as confident, will immediately tighten inside, their body language stiffening as they keep her in their peripheral vision. When she returns, they will make a comment disguised as humor, but soaked in insecurity. So, who's your new best friend? Or they will withdraw into a sulk, crossing their arms, becoming short with her. From a psychological standpoint, this reaction is disastrous. It communicates that your emotional stability is dependent on her exclusive attention, which reframes you as reactive rather than sovereign. The subtext she hears is not, "I care about you," but "my sense of value is threatened by competition." In evolutionary terms, this signals a man who may respond to challenges with emotional volatility, which for a woman means unpredictable safety and unstable leadership. The collapse is not in the fact that you minded, it is in the fact that you showed it in a way that begged her to manage your emotions. Once that dynamic forms, she unconsciously places herself above you in the hierarchy, because now she must handle you. The power response is subtle, but devastating in its effectiveness. You see her walk away and engage the other man. You do not follow with your eyes, nor do you shift your posture. Instead, you turn your attention fully to the person nearest you, perhaps an older man telling a story, perhaps a stranger you've just met, engaging with genuine interest. When she glances back, she does not see surveillance. She sees a man immersed in his own sovereign world, unaffected by the gravitational pull of her micro-displays. When she returns, you meet her eyes with the same warmth and composure you had before she left, as if nothing has occurred that required your attention. This communicates something profound without words, that her presence is valued, but not your oxygen supply. In Machiavellian terms, this is the refusal to contest over small ground. True rulers never panic over temporary shifts because they understand the permanence of their reign. It subcommunicates abundance. You are a man for whom one woman's focus, even a valued woman's, is not the sole determinant of emotional stability. Her perception shifts sharply in these moments. She expected, perhaps even hoped, for a flicker of possessiveness she could read as insecurity. Instead, she finds herself disoriented by your composure. This forces her into a reframe. If you are not unsettled by the appearance of another man, perhaps it is because you are certain of your own magnetism, or perhaps because your options are not limited. Either possibility is intoxicating because it signals high social and romantic value. Over time, this moment becomes a benchmark in her mind for your emotional sovereignty. The next time she sees another man flinch when she diverts attention, the comparison will be automatic and unfavorable to him. You have imprinted her with an image of power that is calm under perceived threat, and that image is difficult to replace. Curiosity blooms into respect, and respect deepens into a pull she cannot rationalize away. Scenario 3 takes place in the quiet, deceptively safe space of private conversation, the kind that feels intimate enough to drop your guard, but is still laced with unspoken tests. You are together, maybe sitting in the low light of her living room after a late dinner, music playing faintly in the background. She shifts her posture, leans back, and studies you with an expression that mixes curiosity with faint mischief. Then she drops it. You know, I can't quite figure you out. The untrained ear hears this as a compliment or an opening for vulnerability. In reality, it is one of the oldest psychological calibrations in the female repertoire. It is not a declaration. It is a probe. She is placing you in the crosshairs to see if you rush to dismantle the mystery or if you let it breathe. From an evolutionary lens, this test evaluates how much control you exert over your self-disclosure. A man who over-explains himself under the smallest pressure reveals that his internal boundaries are porous, that his identity can be mined at will. A man who maintains controlled opacity communicates depth, unpredictability, and the ability to lead without submitting to constant audit. The weak response is predictable. He grins, leans forward, and says something like, "Oh, really? Well, here's what you should know about me." Then he unspools personal history, beliefs, and emotional confessions, as if the goal is to achieve full transparency in a single sitting. It feels romantic to him, but it is, in truth, a performance for approval. Psychologically, this response collapses for two reasons. First, it grants her the role of interrogator, where she sets the terms and he delivers on demand, which erodes the power dynamic. Second, it communicates that the mystery she sensed was accidental, a glitch in his communication, and that his real self is something to be hurriedly clarified rather than deliberately protected. In her subconscious, the magic begins to dissipate. If she can figure you out with one question, you are never operating from deep reserves to begin with. The perceived scarcity of access, the thing that fuels her intrigue, is gone, and with it, her compulsive curiosity. The power response is to accept her statement as if it were not a puzzle to solve, but a truth to enjoy. When she says, "I can't quite figure you out," you meet her gaze with an easy smile and respond, "Good." Then you shift the conversation gently, asking her something unrelated but personal, pulling her further into your frame. This does two things at once. It confirms the mystery without defensiveness, and it subtly redirects her attention back toward revealing herself, rather than extracting you. In the Machiavellian playbook, this is the art of controlled opacity, never giving more than is strategically advantageous, and allowing the absence of full disclosure to serve as a gravitational pull. It subcommunicates that you value your own inner world enough to guard it, and that intimacy with you is something that unfolds slowly by your design, not in response to pressure. It also implies abundance in social and romantic experience, because only a man accustomed to women has interest can afford to keep parts of himself in reserve without fearing loss of attention. Her perception undergoes a subtle but lasting alteration. She expected that her comment might open the gates to a revealing monologue, that she could anchor her understanding of you in neat categories. Instead, she is left with a sharpened sense of mystery. Her mind starts to circle the question with more intensity. What exactly lies beneath the calm exterior? Why is he so comfortable letting me not know? The absence of immediate revelation creates an open loop in her mind, a psychological tension that she is driven to resolve through deeper investment. This moment becomes a pivot point in her attraction curve. She begins to position you as a man who is not merely interesting, but layered, a man who cannot be consumed in one sitting, and therefore a man whose value is self-sustaining. The mystery becomes addictive, and addiction is one of the most potent forms of power you can hold in a romantic dynamic. Scenario 4 is staged in the charged arena of public attention, where your ability to hold the room becomes part of her unconscious evaluation. You are out together at a friend's dinner party, a long table filled with people she knows well and others you've never met. Conversations weave across the table, small clusters forming and breaking. She is beside you at first, engaged in conversation with you, but then she turns her attention to a group across the table, laughing at a story someone else is telling. The laughter grows, and you notice more eyes turning toward that group. This is the hidden test. Will you fade quietly into the background, losing gravitational pull the moment the spotlight moves? Or will you maintain presence without demanding it back? Evolutionarily, this probes a man's ability to navigate group dynamics without becoming socially invisible when momentarily sidelined. For her, a man's dominance in mixed company is a predictor of how he will fare in broader social hierarchies. If you can hold court even when attention shifts, you signal enduring influence rather than situational relevance. The weak response often comes cloaked in politeness, but reeks of insecurity beneath the surface. Many men will sit back, disengage from the wider table, and occupy themselves with their drink or their phone. Some will try to subtly reclaim her attention, leaning in to whisper something unrelated, making a joke aimed specifically at her, anything to pull her focus back. Psychologically, this fails for a simple reason. It telegraphs dependence on her attention to feel relevant in the group. The subtext is that without her as a tether, your presence diminishes, and you slip from the center of gravity to the periphery. In her mind, this is an instant status drop. Social dominance is attractive because it signals competence, security, and resilience in complex environments. The man who vanishes when not directly engaged fails this test because he cannot maintain his own orbit independent of hers. In the cold calculus of her subconscious, this is not a man who thrives without constant reinforcement. The power response is neither to sulk nor to forcibly re-enter her conversational orbit. Instead, you turn naturally to the person on your other side, or across from you, and engage with easy, confident energy. You listen intently, ask questions that draw others in, tell a brief story with controlled pacing and dry humor. You are not competing with her group. You are cultivating your own. Soon, a couple of people are leaning toward you, laughing or nodding, and your microcluster grows organically. This is the social equivalent of Machiavelli's principle of indirect dominance. You do not demand the crown. You simply make it obvious that it already sits on your head. By generating your own center of gravity, you show her in the room that your influence does not depend on any single person as attention. You project abundance, not only in romantic options, but in social resources and alliances. This communicates that you can navigate any group with or without her anchoring you, which is deeply reassuring to her primal instincts. Her perception adjusts in real time. She expected, perhaps unconsciously, that your energy would dip when she shifted focus away from you. Instead, she sees that your light doesn't dim when she looks elsewhere. It just shines in a different direction. This subtly increases your value in her eyes, because it confirms you are not tethered to her mood or attention. Long term, moments like this plant a seed of respect that grows into quiet admiration. In future social settings, she will remember that you are not the man who waits passively for cues. You are the man who shapes the atmosphere without demanding the spotlight. This memory will make her more likely to lean into your frame in public, not because you force her to, but because the alternative, standing outside your gravity, feels like a loss. Scenario 5 unfolds in the rarefied but volatile space of ideological challenge, where the battle for power is fought not with words of charm, but with the integrity of your convictions. You are in an intimate conversation, perhaps late at night, the glow of dimmed lights wrapping around you both like a cloak. She leans forward, eyes bright with a mix of challenge and genuine interest, and says, "I don't get how you can believe that." Maybe it's about politics, morality, or something personal that defines your core values. This is no simple question. It is the ultimate power test, a probe into whether your beliefs are a fortress or a house of cards. Evolutionarily, women are wired to seek a partner whose worldview offers security and a stable internal compass, especially in chaotic or threatening environments. If you bend easily, it signals malleability and a lack of backbone. If you stand firm without alienation, it signals leadership and reliability. The weak response is often an attempt to appease or an emotional retreat. Many men, eager to avoid conflict or rejection, will quickly soften their stance, couch their beliefs in qualifiers, or even concede outright. "Well, I guess that's just how I see it, but I can understand why you'd feel differently." Psychologically, this is a surrender masked as diplomacy. It collapses because it communicates that your identity and values are negotiable under pressure, precisely what she fears most. This triggers a cascade of lowered attraction triggers, because it suggests that you lack the backbone to protect the pair's shared future from external threats. In her mind, a partner must be a protector of the shared ideology, a steadfast bulwark. The weakness here is not the presence of disagreement, but the absence of resolute ownership. This fragility in belief undermines your masculine frame, inviting her to question your capacity as a leader in life's inevitable storms. The power response is neither dogmatic nor confrontational. You listen fully to her challenge, nod thoughtfully, then calmly restate your core belief with quiet confidence and clarity. "I see where you're coming from, but this is what I believe, because it's the lens through which I make sense of the world, and I stand by it." This response is powerful because it combines openness with immovability. It signals that you are not closed off to dialogue, but that your values are anchored deeply, unshaken by momentary resistance. In Machiavellian terms, this is the display of principled strength, knowing when to yield and when to stand fast. It subcommunicates reliability, signaling that you are a man who can be counted on not only to lead, but to protect shared meaning. This response naturally cultivates trust, a rare and potent currency in attraction. Her perception shifts in profound ways after this exchange. She recognizes that your power is not simply physical or social, but intellectual and moral, a full-spectrum sovereignty. This triggers a complex blend of respect, admiration, and a dawning sense of safety. In her subconscious, you become not just a partner, but an anchor, someone who provides clarity in confusion and strength in uncertainty. Over time, this perception deepens into loyalty, because she knows that your convictions are not fleeting, but form the bedrock of your shared world. This moment, more than any other, locks your status as a man whose power is measured not just by charisma, but by unyielding principle. It is a magnet that pulls her closer, forging a bond that transcends attraction and enters the realm of devotion.